What does toxic positivity mean to you?
It's the excess of positivity that is forced and not allowing room for any painful or negative emotions. It's kind of this positive washing of things and feelings and not allowing someone to process them.
Once you are kind to yourself, then you can be kinder to others, and you can be kind to yourself when you are aware of what's going on. When in a situation or moment of suffering, you can, okay, I'm suffering, and that's okay. Hi, they are suffering. Good afternoon. I see you. I feel you. I accept you.
Feelings are sort of like a barometer. They tell you where you are in life. And if we don't use that data, we won't really know what's going on within us. And then we reach a point where we kind of just combust.
Regardless of where you are in the world or who you have in your immediate surrounding, that you can get the tools that you need in some shape, way or form. Might not be the ideal kind of best version that you would hoped for, but it's a start. That's all you need.
This is a technique where you check your inner weather, same as one day you look out of the window and it's sunny or it's rainy. The inner weather is checking in with yourself and say, okay, what is my inner weather? What am I feeling today? And for somebody that is hard to get in touch with their feelings, you can say, okay, I feel a breeze today. Okay, I feel like it's dark today. Okay, today is raining. Okay, today feels like a beautiful sunrise by the beach. And that way you get more attuned to whatever it is that is going within you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dreamcatcher podcast, a place where your dreams can find a voice. I'm your host, Seline Shenoy. Thank you to all of you who return every week to tune in to become a better version of yourself. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already, and rate our show if you enjoy this episode. In a world that constantly promotes positivity and happiness, it may seem counterintuitive to consider the dark side of these seemingly uplifting ideals. However, the truth is that the pursuit of positivity can sometimes become toxic. While it may appear as a harmless approach to life, toxic positivity can actually be detrimental to our mental health, relationships, and society. The good news is that you and I can learn how to navigate the complexities of emotions in a more compassionate and realistic way. To help me uncover the dark side of positivity and how we can nurture a healthier mindset to tackle everyday challenges, I invited my fellow podcaster, Sahar Milani from the Mindful Makers podcast, and Laura Roche, a presenter, actress, and someone who calls himself a self-development advocate. Join us for this stimulating and uplifting discussion that will hopefully give you lots to think about. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode where we're going to be having a panel discussion. Today, we'll be diving into a very concerning social trend known as toxic positivity. This concept has been gaining traction in recent years, especially in the self-help zeitgeist. So today, we're going to be having Sahar Milani from the Mindful Makers podcast, along with Laura Roche, who is a presenter, actress, who describes herself as a personal development advocate. So they're here today to join me to shed light on this important issue. So welcome, ladies. I'm excited to have you here with me today.
Hi, Seline. Thanks for having us.
So first of all, let's start up by discussing about what exactly is toxic positivity, because a lot of people kind of don't have a very clear idea what that entails. So, Sarah, why don't we start with you? What does toxic positivity mean to you?
Sure. I mean, I can unpack it in many ways, but I think primarily it's the excess of positivity that is forced and not allowing room for any painful or negative emotions as they would be labeled. I don't necessarily believe such things exist, but for the sake of, clear definitions, that's how we've become to view toxic positivity. Now, it can either come from within, so I can say, I'm applying it to myself, where I don't allow myself to process any negative emotions and I just blindly pursue this sort of blue sky thinking, silver line chasing, tunnel vision of my life. Or I can experience it from the external world, where others don't give me the space to process a difficult moment or a challenging time that might be hitting really hard. And words like, you'll be fine, or that's all right, and don't worry about it, it's okay. And, you know, it can happen that somebody's loved one has passed away or something tragic has happened to them and they're confiding in someone, but they're saying, well, at least you still have a home, or at least something else, you know. So it's kind of this positive washing of things and feelings, and not allowing someone to process them. Personally, I have an issue with the word toxic being married to positivity. I think we're very trigger happy these days with the word toxic being just stuck onto things. You've got, you know, toxic masculinity, femininity, toxic job, toxic this. And really, when you uncover the depths of it, I'd like to see it as just something that's forced or pushed or processed in a different way. And the basis of it, to me, this is very much my definition, is always fear. Yeah. That's
yeah. So what you're saying is, when you boil it down to its essence, it really comes down to being afraid to face,
if it's
what
within,
you're feeling deep within you.
fear that, yeah, if you're applying it to yourself, fear of looking at some kind of reality that has something going on that your nervous system or you feel unable to handle. Or conversely, if it's from a loved one or from a boss or from a colleague, them being afraid of what your situation means to them, or not being able to handle you, or not being able, or being fearful that they'll say the wrong thing. We are human, as human beings, are very complex. So that's how I think, in simplistic ways, it's just to say the essence of it to me is fear. And that's why I don't think toxicity belongs with the word positivity here. But I know that it's a label that works in society now, and it's very prevalent.
Very true, very true. Laura, what do you think?
That was extremely good articulated.
She's like, how do I top that?
Well, I was thinking that to me is a band-aid on pain, not letting it come out and express itself. And now when you said fear, I was like, is it masking fear or shame?
Could be both.
Because many times we feel ashamed of things and we cannot even label it or describe it, and we just like we trying to bury it as if we were flamingos.
Yeah.
You know, and for example, it came to me an example. I have somebody very close to me that, to me, I'm very emotional and I allow my feelings to happen, because I feel like when you hold onto them, when you don't express them, when you suppress them, they hurt more, and you know, they will come boiling up at some point. So I just let my feelings feel. And I have somebody very close to me that whenever I'm trying to express some sadness or discomfort, starts trying to change the subject to a joke or to making something happier, and I'm like, stop it. I want to feel what I'm feeling. I need to process this in order to continue and move further. Yeah. So exactly what you was just saying is either self-imposed, or either somebody else doesn't have the tools to manage your pain or your shame or your whatever is going on within you, which sometimes I feel like has nothing to do with me. It has more to do with the other person trying to stop me.
Yeah, I think they feel awkward when trying to give you space to process your emotions, and maybe they're well intentioned, maybe they just want to help you get over it, and they feel 100%. Like that is a solution that they're offering you. He's like, but in a way they're projecting their own fear of facing their feelings,
of self-intimacy, right? I feel like
intimacy,
we are
right?
scared of self-intimacy.
Yeah,
like getting to know ourselves, getting to know what's going on within us.
Yeah, and it can mean different things to different people. So, for example, in a corporate or work dynamic situation, if it's a boss doing it, you know, projecting toxic positivity in their environment, it might be that they don't have the tools to cope with what's arising with their employees. And therefore, for them, it's just a coping mechanism to keep everybody, what they think is, motivated and doing their jobs. Yes. But really, it's eroding the corporate culture because of, again, the fear. or the tools that they don't have to be able to deal with it. And then from a loved one, like I said earlier, it can come from a really loving space. And they might not be aware of it, but again, it's this inability to have the tools to handle really raw human emotion and vulnerability.
Yeah, that's very true. But how do you think toxic positivity contrasts with just your garden variety positivity? Because some degree of positivity is good, and I think positivity helps you see the silver lining, so to speak, and it puts you in a place where you can have a lot of resilience and ways to cope with obstacles. But at the same time, you don't lose sight of the fact that life is hard and challenges are going to come along the way. So you don't have the blinders that toxic positivity tends to give you. Yeah, I think it's important for us to distinguish between those two, like just plain positivity and toxic positivity. So, yeah.
Do you like to go?
I feel like positivity is when you try to look at things, okay, this is a situation, this is where I am at the moment. For example, to me, something that has really, really helped me is the concept of impermanence. I love reading about Buddhism, and in Buddhism, they talk a lot about impermanence, which is things, they never stay the same, no matter if it's good or bad. So to me personally, once I started like ingraining that concept in my brain, I realized, okay, this is bad, this is hurtful, I accept it, but I know it's impermanent, so it will come good at some other point. And when something is amazing, I'm like, okay, this is awesome, but remember, this is not gonna last forever because impermanence. So to me, that's a way of, I think it's also a character thing. Personally, I'm very positive. I try to be like, so when I get very sad, I don't know about you guys, but when I get very sad, I get sad for 2 days. I allow myself to feel the feels for 2 days. And then third day, I'm like, okay, solutions, action. How can we fix this? How can we move forward? And that personally really, really helps me.
It's like very healthy.
Yeah, I feel my feels and then,
feel
okay.
your feelings, yeah.
Action.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very important. And, as opposed to repressing and not really processing what's going on within you, because that is essential. And I kind of feel like feelings are sort of like a barometer. They tell you where you are in life. It gives you a sense of your internal climate. And if we don't use that data, we can just be kind of blindsided. We won't really know what's going on within us. And then we reach a point where we kind of just combust, because we have been repressing and we've not been paying attention to what we're feeling. And I think toxic positivity can do that because it doesn't give you room to face it and just deal with what's going on within you. So yeah, I love that you brought that up. It's extremely healthy. And what you're essentially doing is reframing and seeing your feelings in a completely different way, something that can benefit you as opposed to kind of get you into a destructive state of being. And I think that's essential. Yeah. So, but I wonder, what is it that has caused toxic positivity to really take hold of our society? I know there are a variety of things in the zeitgeist and also in our interactions with people. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. What do you think has really kind of caused this to become so prevalent?
Well, my mind really wanders immediately, and I know this has been overused hugely, but to the pandemic. So when the pandemic was sort of blossoming in the world, this notion of the hashtag good vibes only and the whole, positive vibes only kind of movement started to really be seen. And you'd see, endless hours of content of people just living their best lives in quarantine, making banana bread, gym instructors being like, this is great, we can work out together at home. And everyone was putting this hugely positive spin on quite a crappy situation for the world. But it was needed at that time. I feel like, what else were people left to do? The term itself, I know through research was actually first coined in 2011 in a book titled Queer Art, the Queer Art of Failure. And since then, we've seen it come across in terms of its prominence in search terms since 2014 and gain like huge popularity. But in 2020 is when we started to see the spike of people searching for toxic positivity. And in the last 2 years, the search terms have just spiked. So I think that really has to be the seed of where this was started to flourish in society. And I don't think we've stopped since. I think social media has been one of the massive tools that has helped people do this. You see endless content of, again, people having a very tunnel vision of each other's lives, not the whole part, just a section of it. And we tend to just show the best section. I, for one, forget to film the moments where I cry. I genuinely don't.
Yeah.
I don't think, oh, let me just pick up my phone and film myself crying. But I think, oh, there's a happy moment. Let me just film it because I want to keep that. Maybe I should start doing it. I'm not sure, but it's definitely a point to ponder.
But I think like Gen Z is changing that. Like Gen Z are more open. And I was actually seeing a video today about how Gen Z are more expressive of their feelings, either good or bad.
Yeah.
I think we're all millennials.
Yeah.
And we are a kind of a different generation.
We're the Instagram generation.
Yeah.
I think Facebook, Instagram, where we're showing our best life. And it's called, I believe it's called the flex culture, where you're being your most glamorous and happy self. And that's what we're exposed to. And we don't know what's really going on behind the scenes in everybody's life. And that causes us to feel like, okay, my life is crap. You know, what am I doing wrong? So yeah, you're right. But Gen Z is changing that.
I mean,
that
to
trend.
me, when I have the reels,
emotional
I have posted,
realism.
when I have posted things showing vulnerability and telling, it's when I have the most engagement.
Yeah.
Which again, I don't want to fall into that, you know. But it is true, when you open up, when you honestly and sincerely open up on social media, people tend to respond, and I think it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable.
Very true.
Yeah. I also think it takes a lot of time to think of creating content constantly. And some people just don't want to constantly have to create content for good, bad, or ugly. And the more acceptance that we have of that and say, right, this person is creating content that is uplifting, this person is more comfortable with vulnerability, it creates less room for division and labeling. Because who are we to say, you know, what we should be doing as human beings when we're using our creativity? I wouldn't expect that of artists or designers and say, only create colorful things or only create things that make people... It's allowing everybody the space to just be how they want to express themselves. But absolutely, Gen Z have opened the dialogue about more awareness around social media usage, and they are actually the most affected by it. When they look at studies of adolescents who have repressed their emotions in 2021, they are the ones that are most likely to obviously experience depression and anxiety and all the things that come as part of that package. And they are also the ones that have been exposed to social media the most in their formative years. So it's very telling when you look at those kind of studies.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And they're kind of having a collective catharsis, you know, using these tools to really express themselves. But the only caution I would, offer them, if they're listening, is that, they want to be careful of veering into the victim mentality territory, because that's also not good, and to just kind of wallow in self-pity and just kind of use that to gain attention, and just because you don't want to stay in that negative place for too long, right? You want to pick yourself up, because that's at the other end of the spectrum of toxic positivity, whereas you're like completely down and out and you stay there forever, and you kind of let that become part of your identity, and that's something you don't want either, right? So
I think it's always about balance in most things in life.
Yeah.
You know, having a balance. I know, for example, when I was experiencing my deepest and darkest days, I firsthand experienced a lot of forced positivity around me from loved ones, from friends who cared. They wanted me to be okay, and they were afraid of admitting that there could be a reality where I wouldn't be. But also the guilt that came out from that experience is the way that I treated myself and thought, well, I need to pick myself up. I have to be positive. I have to be strong. I have to, be all these things that people expect of me in order to be better. And realizing that actually the healing and the true power of transformation and transforming through pain and trauma to lead to growth and evolution came from really embracing all of those emotions, like you said, the good, bad, and the ugly. And there's this great personal psychology modality that I love working with called internal family systems. And
is that the same as family constellations?
No. So internal family systems, basically IFS, as it's referred to, is, I'm going to pick up my note about that over here because I wanted to mention, yes, it's a guy called Richard Schwartz who developed it in the 1980s. But there's also a book that kind of came out before that by Stone and Stone called Becoming Ourselves. So they both explore this capacity that we have to embrace all our parts. So we'll have a critical thinker, for example, or the one that is our cheerleader, and the voice inside our head that says, not sure if that's going to go well. And we also have a self, which is this sort of, I call it the Zen being, the one that's kind of very grounded. And it's in allowing all of these parts to have a voice that we can truly feel peace, and not pushing one away or not bringing one in, and allowing them to just say, right, what are you here to tell me? And I could say it really helped me through some tough times of overcoming this false positivity that was around me, but also treating others with kindness and compassion, knowing that I can't expect them to be this version of what I need them to be right now. Maybe I need to take myself somewhere else and speak to someone else to get help. Maybe I need to find other resources.
Yeah, that's very insightful. And obviously, I mean, it's safe to say that you are emotionally mature and you are self-aware. So I'm wondering if that sort of insight that you have is accessible to everybody.
It is.
Yeah.
I think it is.
But they need to be in the right environment. They need to be nurtured and kind of educated about this. So that's my only concern, that people don't really have the kind of bandwidth to get to that place where you can accommodate for all those different voices. And you know what I mean?
It's about getting help. I think we all need help sometimes.
Yes, if we have parents or mentors,
but a good therapists, not shy of that.
Yes,
there are books now for children about emotional intelligence where they just open the book and you can read about the different emotions. Like I have 3 nephews, so I'm very into literature for children.
Yes,
so there's so many books that you can actually learn about the emotions and learn to identify them and learn how to express them. When we were children, we didn't have that.
No.
And picking up on your point,
we had Sesame Street.
Yes, exactly.
Love those guys.
Yeah. And to me, something that really changed and helped me so much was the concept of self-compassion and the discovery of the term and everything, which it boils down to, what do I need? And when you have the capacity in a moment of suffering to ask yourself, what do I need now? When you are capable to notice, frame, and put a name of whatever it is that you are feeling, then you can easily accept it and then work with it. Yeah. Whereas when you are unaware of what you need in each moment, then it's harder to process.
It takes a lot of work, to your point, Seline.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
It does. And it depends which section of society you belong to. If you're a part of society where you're not so privileged, where you don't really have the luxury of really thinking about these things.
Well, it's the pyramid of Maslow, right? When
Correct.
You are in the basic needs, when your most important thing is to eat and sleep and pay rent.
Not even that. Even if parents, if they are, middle class or upper middle class, but the parents are so busy, they can't even attend to the kids. And so the kids are kind of left to their own devices, and they're getting their reference points from their friends, from school. And so what I'm trying to say is they don't really know that this knowledge exists, that they don't know how to be any different. So we have to get to the root cause of this. And I think it really starts from our upbringing and what we're exposed to at home. And the exposure that we've had. So
I think also it's also curiosity, right? Because you can come from a place that is not very emotionally aware, but if you're curious, or sometimes it tends to be out of pain, right? When you are suffering the most, you try to find ways to alleviate that suffering. And then you kind of try to find tools and ways to cope.
Yeah. I think curiosity has led me down some incredible paths where no parent or tutor or mentor has ever been able to lead me, but it's just this thirst that I've had for, improvement or working through something. And
yeah, I can relate to that.
I can see that, maybe some people might not have that curiosity and they might not think that way. But in this day and age, we have so much access to so much information 24/7. And even things like trauma exercises or seeking help online has been made free and accessible to people. So there's hope.
There's
hope regardless of where you are in the world or what you're doing or who you have in your immediate surrounding, that you can get the tools that you need in some shape, way or form. Might not be the ideal kind of best version that you had hoped for, but it's a start, and that's all you need, really.
Yeah, that's so true. That's definitely a more optimistic take. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the upcoming launch of my new book titled The Nomadic Soul, a seeker's guide to finding a sense of self and belonging in the modern world, which highlights a profound yet often unexplored part of your identity that holds the key to everything from answering your biggest questions to finding deeper meaning and joy in everyday life. Visit thenomadicsoulbook.com to learn more, download a free chapter, or to buy a copy. What do you think about the New Age movement and self-help? Do you think it has helped or made us more steeped into toxic positivity? What are your thoughts on that, Laura?
So I have 3 papers on that. I just finished my master on mindfulness and self-compassion. So
Yes, we're all yours.
So what the studies say, what the scholars say, is that when you practice, for example, affirmations, they are really, really common these days. And everybody's like, I am strong, I am happy, everything is good. What the papers say is that only works if you have a high self-esteem. So if your self-esteem is high, then you would believe what you're saying because you believe in yourself, right? Whereas if you have a lower self-esteem, but you're telling yourself, I'm fantastic, I'm happy, but your self-esteem is low, it would create such a dissonance a cognitive dissonance in you that will only create friction. And obviously what they propose is acceptance. So Dr. Christine Neff, she says, and Dr. Christopher Germer, they say, instead of saying positive affirmations, let's do acceptance sentences. So instead of saying, I am feeling wonderful today, you can say, I am having a regular okay day without highs or lows. And that creates, like, what you're actually writing and saying is what actually is happening within you. So that creates more a sense of peace and calmness because you are aligned with what you're feeling.
So you're in kind of integrity of what's happening within you.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes all the difference.
And then again, that leads to awareness. Awareness leads to a possibility of, okay, if I know what's happening within me, instead of forcing something like, I'm doing great, I'm not feeling great.
Yeah.
So if you don't force that and you allow it to be what it is, then you can actually heal that and transform that.
I like that. But law of attraction practitioners would be like, no, that's not going to attract positive vibes. You're just going to repel all the good things in life if you actually admit that you're not feeling too good. I don't know about you, but when The Secret came out, I kind of felt the pressure to be like a Pollyanna, think positive, see a, bright, shiny future in front of you, think everything's gonna work out, when on some level, I really don't feel like that. I feel like the odds are against me, or I feel that I have an uphill climb. So yeah, I felt a lot of pressure when I came across these manifestation principles. I mean, they are helpful for sure, but if it's not in alignment with what you're really feeling, it can make you feel like a phony.
Yeah. This sentence says, this work suggests, this was a paper called Helping the Self-Help Others. Self-affirmation increases self-compassion and pro-social behaviors. That's the name of this paper. And it says, this work, basically the conclusion, this work suggests that self-compassion may be a promising mechanism for self-affirmation effects, and that self-compassionate feelings can mobilize pro-social behaviors. So again, once you are kind to yourself, then you can be kinder to others, and you can be kind to yourself when you are aware of what's going on. When in a situation or moment of suffering, you can, okay, I'm suffering, and that's okay. Hi, dear suffering. Good afternoon. I see you, I feel you, I accept you. And therefore I accept myself.
I think when it comes to New Age movements and their influence on this sort of enforced positivity, I'd say yes, to a certain extent. We have seen this rise of, and it kind of coincided, I feel, with the same time as positive psychology, which has its own place and is incredibly helpful. But New Age movement really ran with it and, you know, shone it like a beacon over the world, and was like, this is the Holy Grail and we found the key. And it was very exciting for everybody because we hadn't had anything like that before, and it was like a game changer. And now we've had the luxury of time to be able to sit with it and find our own iteration of what that means in our world. And for someone, it might be that those affirmations get them out of bed every single day and they're, you know, going through their worst moments, but it's their pillar. And for someone else, like you said, that isn't able to embody it really, it feels fake, and therefore they don't need them. So the way that I look at that whole movement is that we are all free to choose what we decide resonates with us. And we are able to take radical responsibility for our own journeys. And it's important that we are authentic with ourselves. And I know that word has been overused. And
it really has.
It really does.
Yeah.
But I had to say it because in the essence of being true to yourself and being like, well, do I really want to say this mantra right now, or am I just saying it because my teacher says it? You know, will I get out of bed this morning because, you know, this great philosopher said this in their book and explained my situation? Or do I just want to continue to feel crap for a few days and then, you know, deal with it later? We have to be able to say that we are in the driving seat of our lives. So New Age or not New Age, what is our place? Where are we in this equation, and what are we doing about it, is what I would say.
I like that. Radical responsibility.
It's important. I think it's so easy to point fingers and blame and create deflection. I'm not saying that's what you were saying, but I can see it happening a lot, especially with social media, you know, and everyone's very quick to divide and be in different camps. And one says, you know, seed oils are bad for you, and the other one says they're great for you. Can we just be a bit more balanced, everyone?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to our approach to positivity.
Yes.
Sometimes we want to be, you know, completely hopeful because it's the only shred of thing, like something we have to hang on to. And sometimes we just want to wallow in our sadness, but it's our choice.
Yeah. Beautifully said.
Yeah.
And I think also, to a certain extent, being aware of our baseline temperament. I think we all have different temperaments, right? 100%. Some of us veer more towards like melancholy, like the Eeyore, Eeyore kind of type, and then you have like the Tigger who are like happy,
bouncy,
you know. So I think it's being aware of where you stand in that, and embracing that, and learning how to find that balance given your basic tendencies.
I always refer to this metaphorical toolbox on my show, and I ask my guests what's in their metaphorical toolbox, because it's really interesting to see the different ways in which people apply a sense of mindfulness and compassion, like you said, to their lives based on what they need. And there's no one particular route. it doesn't mean you have to sit on a cushion for 10 hours a day meditating and you'll be mindful. You can be mindful by going outside and touching a tree, because that's what connects you to nature and it makes you feel good. Someone else might not care about it. It might be cooking for them. But the essence of it is that they found their own way to show up and be better versions of themselves, or just be present.
Sure. And what are your thoughts on the role of physiology and our body when it comes to how we perceive the world, and our tendency to embrace toxic positivity? The reason I ask is because Tony Robbins, I mean, he was one of my earliest influence. He was very big on state management. And when I went to his seminars, he got us to really use our bodies and really to move. And that was quite effective in changing my perception in that very moment, and the way how I saw the issues that were kind of disturbing me at that point in my life. So I'm wondering if we can sort of shift our orientation based on how we use our bodies and how we care for our bodies, because that can have a big impact on us, because we are essentially a bunch of chemicals, right? And hormones and things like that. So that can impact us, if we don't get enough sleep, if we're eating the wrong foods. We can,
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I'm going to wax lyrical about that, so I'm going to stop myself. But I'd like Laura to say something. Her viewpoint, because I'm very passionate about the topic of movement.
Yeah, same. I mean, same. I can feel it myself when I feel like it's the same again as feelings. When the feelings are stagnant, there's nothing you can do about it. When our body is stagnant, there's nothing you can do about it. But once you start moving and circulating either our blood by exercise or our feelings by expressing them, that's when change happens, because we are in constant motion and evolution. And as you were saying about chemicals, I have to tell you a story. My grandmother, may she rest in peace, once she went crazy. And she was hospitalized in a psychiatric, and we couldn't understand what happened. And what happened is that she had Parkinson, and she was taking one medication for Parkinson, and then they gave her another medication for something else. So she was hospitalized in a psychiatry in a hospital for like 3 weeks, until they realized that they were just, both medications were interfering with each other.
Oh no.
But once they found out, they reduced the medications, and then she was perfect. And then they told us the brain is complete chemicals. And the moment you learn how to work with these chemicals, grandma was not crazy anymore,
That's such a great story.
It was insane.
Yeah.
Literally.
I'm glad she was okay, and that they found
it was such a good learning experience. And to me, to go into the hospital and visited her, and you see all the other people with, of course, I don't want to, make it sound like very superficial. It was a deep thing, but when you go there and you see the other people, the other patients, then you notice, wow, it's all chemistry in the brain, and the doctors were explaining to us.
So I think we have to tackle that first, start with the body, and then we go to the mind and sort out, because most of the people who are repressing their emotion, a lot of them may be doing it because maybe they just don't feel good inside their bodies, and they're trying to find ways to just kind of bury their emotions and find ways to escape what's really going on. And I think if they feel good within themselves physiologically, that can help them tackle it better.
I think I would approach it on an individualistic basis, because I'm thinking of some of my friends now where I'm always like, let's go and do this. And they're like, nope, not interested, because they're just not, it's not their vibe. Movement is not their vibe. For me, movement is medicine. And I know that it would benefit them, absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking, if you're a human being,
this feeling that it's just not what they need in that moment. Maybe they need stillness, or maybe I need to learn how to be more still sometimes. And there's this adrenaline junkie kind of, like, not me, but there are adrenaline junkies out there that pursue this constant high that comes with movement.
Yes.
And everything in balance, again, is what I would keep returning to. And if we are able to truly tap into what our body needs in that moment, whether it be movement or stillness, that's the key that we can unlock. But that requires going within, and some people aren't there yet.
Again, that's just what I said. The basic of self-compassion is what do I need?
What do I need?
What do I need? That is it. Once you actually start asking yourself, what do I need?
What do I need? Yeah.
When we got here, you said, it's too hot for me. I need the AC.
Yeah.
You know?
So true.
Yeah.
You said,
Yeah.
what do I need? I need
Yeah.
the AC. Okay, let's go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good point. Very good point. And I do want to touch upon the culture and how our cultural upbringing impacts how we view the world, and if that can kind of put us in a place where we are more inclined to be toxically positive. What are your thoughts on that?
Having a bit of a giggle.
Well, and you
because,
you are like the perfect people to talk to, because you all are global citizens. You all have lived in different places. You've traveled and
experienced so many cultures.
Experienced so many cultures.
Being able to be in these melting pot cities where you just see sort of the whole kaleidoscope of cultures come to life. So I also have Iranian roots, and I was raised in the UK partly, and then also I traveled a lot. But long story short, culturally, I can see that there are certain cultures that do lend themselves more to really expressing the whole colourful spectrum of emotions that people possess and welcome it. But I know, I would say Italians do that very well. My husband's Italian, and hanging around his family, like, whew, you know when someone's upset and you know when someone's happy.
Do they use the hand?
Everything, body. It's like, it's beautiful. It's like a symphony of emotion.
Gotta use the hand.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Sorry to all the Italians if that's
I'm
using a stereotype. But yeah, go ahead.
a symphony of emotions, and it's really, entertaining to watch, but also like, very interesting, because when I grew up in Persian culture, our loved ones did not want to see their children or their family upset. So if there was ever a moment or something that could potentially upset the other person, they would say, don't tell them, they'll get upset. Let's only, let's keep these moments of celebration happy, or let's, smile through this moment, even if we don't really feel like it. And I grew up to finally realize that whilst that was entrenched in something very loving and came from a kind place, it does not serve me in my life right now. And I've decided to have my own iteration of what that means, which is to speak up and say something and say to somebody, I'm not sure if you've got the capacity to hear this right now. Let me know if this is too much for you. Just so I know that person's barometer as well, because I don't want to vomit my emotions on someone else if they don't have the capacity to hear it. But I can see, that's better balance, because you've also got, I know this is incredibly archaic, and it's definitely not an insult to my British friends at all, because I grew up in London. I'm a London girl at heart. But we talk about the stiff upper lip in Britain, right? Keep a stiff upper lip, keep calm and carry on, all that kind of stuff that comes out of it. And yeah, it has its time and place. We can't be all like falling apart when the house is on fire and we need to go get our stuff, be like feeling our feelings when we need to act. But at the same time, I would say there's a time and place to let go. So culturally, I can see how that's influenced a lot of different parts of the world as well, especially here where we are in the wonderful Middle East. You have experience to what that means in different emotions and how it's perceived and understood and accepted in society.
I'm curious, were you seen as a bit of a black sheep amongst your Iranian family and friends?
No.
Because you were more bold in expressing yourself and telling it like it is?
No, I don't think so. I never felt like a black sheep. I felt very accepted. And I think that's also a beautiful thing about Persian culture, is that they celebrate differences and they revel in something that is maybe not something that they would have ever done, but we share and we learn, and it's very warm, it's very loving, it's always based in love, is what I would say.
I love that. And Laura, you grew up You're
Spain.
In Spain.
Fully
Oh,
born and raised in
Mediterranean
Spain.
girl.
Yes. Even though here everybody thinks I'm an Arab because I have this face, but no.
You're what
fully
they call
Spanish.
culturally ambiguous.
Fully Spaniard.
Yeah.
Proud Spaniard. Yes. So we were talking about it that, again, Spain is like Italy. They're our cousins. And we are very expressive, I would say.
Yeah.
And to me, one thing that shocked me when I started living outside of Spain, and I remember when I moved to New York, you enter a shop and everybody will be like, "Hi, how are you?"
Yeah, I know.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"Do you care? Like, shall I sit and tell you?" Because in Spain we don't do that. We say, "Hi, good afternoon, good evening, hi," but we don't say, "How are you?" And to me, it's such a I don't dare to ask somebody how are you unless I'm ready to receive. With honesty, because otherwise it feels superficial to me. What should I say? Good. And maybe I'm not good. Maybe you're not good, And to me, what you were saying about people holding space for us, I learned that a few years ago. If I need somebody because I'm going through something and I need to talk, I will text that person and say, "Hey, I'm going through something. I think I need a 5 to 10 minute conversation to cry and talk about it. Do you have the capacity to hold it right now?" And I always send a WhatsApp first. And if the person says, "Yes, let's go," okay, fine, perfect. If the person says, "Sorry, I love you, but I don't have the capacity right now," I don't take offense. And also the other person knows what to expect, And I think that was so healthy for me in my relationships whenever I've needed somebody to lean on, and to express. But yeah, the cultural bias, for example, I also lived in Austria. I lived in Vienna for 3 years and a half, and it's like a German.
That is the other
The
extreme.
other end. And I was like, why nobody smiles here? But bless them, I love Austria. But it's completely different from Spain. But then you also learn that I think geography also plays a role. And when somebody explained to me that I had never seen it before, Austria, for example, because it's a place that I lived in, Austria is surrounded by mountains. And so historically, it was a...
Secluded.
Yes, it was a place of difficult access.
Okay.
Whereas Spain is surrounded by sea.
That's so interesting.
So when historically, by centuries, you have a country where there was ships coming in and trading and different spices, people.
And explorers.
Yeah,
going to
explorers,
different
clothes.
parts of the world. Yeah.
That makes the culture more open because historically they've been used, like Iran as well, right? Historically, they've been used to that. So that makes a society being more open just because physically they are open, whereas a society that is more geographically secluded, it will tend to have a more secluded, emotionally secluded society. That was very interesting to me when I realized.
Yeah, very interesting.
But where did you feel more at home? Are you do you feel like Spain feels more like comfortable to you, or did you feel which felt more like comfortable for you?
So I've lived in this is my 4th continent because I consider the UAE Asia.
Yeah.
So this is my 4th continent, and I will say whenever I am fine, no matter where you put me in the world, I will be fine. Whenever I am not fine, no matter where you put me in the world, I will be suffering.
Wherever you go.
And to me, it was like in 2018, I realized that I had lived in Brussels, in Barcelona, in Madrid, in Vienna, and in New York. And there was a time where I realized, okay, no matter how fast I run, how many places I move country, if I don't turn and face my shadows, they're going to come with me wherever I go. So I might as well be courageous, turn, face my shadows, and work through them. Because otherwise, no matter how many continents I go to, if I'm not happy with myself, I will carry it with me.
That's so true. And how can we connect that to toxic positivity? I want to make sure we'll edit this part, but
because you were asking about the cultures, right?
The cultures, yeah. So like which ones did you feel had a tendency to be more toxic when it comes to...
I think saying toxic is a bit too, label a society as toxic is a bit harsh. But to me, I felt
authentic, I guess. Which culture felt more like authentic when it comes to dealing with their feelings and really showing who they really are? Like what you see is what you get.
I feel like Mediterraneans in general, like I also lived in Cairo, and Egyptians also are very expressive of their feelings. When they are angry, you will find out, and when they are happy, you will find out. And that brings a similarity with Spain. I feel like Mediterraneans in general, but again, I have never lived in South America or Latin America. I have never lived in Australia. I have, the world is so vast that I cannot.
You're young, you have the rest of your life. You're young, you have the rest of your life. Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But
I would say I think it is more nuanced than us being able to say it's just down to a cultural thing. I think
So
it
true.
really is about what's going on in society's internal dictionary, in what pockets people have been exposed to and not exposed to.
Yes.
I can see vast differences even within a city.
So true.
Even within boroughs in London, even within where we live right now.
Yeah.
So I think it is a very nuanced factor, and this diversity of expressing emotions, I don't think comes down to socioeconomic factors or culture. I think it's about our dictionaries.
Yeah. I think it also comes down to like what feels authentic for us and based on who we are and where we are in our life. Like when I lived in the US and whenever I visited as a kid, I visited the US a lot as a kid. It kind of gave me permission to express a side of me that I felt like I repressed. I was very shy. I was very inward looking and kind of hermetic. And when I was in the US, I felt like that positivity, that chirpy American kind of attitude really made me open up. And it felt very inviting, and it made me feel like it was okay to see the brighter side of life. I felt like I was a bit melancholic as a kid. So I think sometimes going to certain cultures can really open you up and see the world differently. For someone who grew up in a different environment or have a different kind of personality, a place like the US might be a bit too much for them, But for someone like me, it felt like it really was conducive to my growth and me becoming more extroverted and more confident in who I am. So yeah, I think it's important to find the right environment for you, not just when it comes to culture, but also the people that you hang out with and spend time with. So yeah.
Yeah. It can be nature, it can be people, it can be countries, it can, makes different people tick with different things. I know a friend that went to the mountains and found like himself, and he came back a completely changed person, and he was, in the Himalayas pretty much alone. So
see, that would be depressing for me.
There you go.
Like I would never go for a silent retreat. I wouldn't do that. I have friends who say like, I went for like 20 days and I didn't say a word, and I was like, oh my God.
I did it and I loved it.
Oh, you did?
You
I
so
can't. Like the Vipassana, like I was like, no way. That would just... that wouldn't work for me.
It's beautiful to see that, we all find our own ways of tapping into that next level of what's going to develop our emotional dictionary or unlock a part of ourselves that we didn't know needed to be unlocked. Life is wonderful like that. Is that too positive?
All right. So any closing thoughts? What would be great is for you to recommend one tool that you would prescribe to somebody who is kind of has a strong tendency to be toxically positive. One tool, each of you.
I like the inner weather. This is a technique where you check your inner weather, same as one day you look out of the window and it's sunny, it's cloudy, or it's rainy. The inner weather is checking in with yourself and say, okay, what is my inner weather? What am I feeling today? And for somebody that is hard to get in touch with their feelings, you can say, okay, I feel a breeze today. Okay, I feel like it's dark today. Okay, today is raining. Okay, today feels like a beautiful sunrise by the beach. And that way you get more attuned to whatever it is that is going within you.
I love that.
I would say if it's sort of self-inflicted toxic positivity. Perhaps I'm going to take a page out of, the book The Artist's Way?
Oh, I love
Julia
it.
Cameron.
Yeah, so page out of her book, she calls it the morning pages, where you literally just
It's a classic.
go for it. Yeah, let
classic.
yourself go loose, go wild for those pages in the morning, and just, excavate the deep and dark, juicy corners of whatever you're feeling. And, tear it up and poof, like get on with your day. And if that doesn't serve your purpose, if it's not your bag, set out some worry time, maybe be like, I'm going to be between 10 and 11 in the morning. I'm going to let myself worry incessantly and obsessively about this thing that's upsetting me or making me feel bad, and I'm just going to wallow in it. And then I'm going to get on with my day, so that you have balance and you're letting everything that needs to be like in there come out and not pushing it aside. And I think it also helps in terms of experiencing it from an external world as well, because if they're projecting this sense of false positivity onto you, then you're giving yourself an outlet to say it's okay to feel like that, and I have this dedicated time just to begin with, because sometimes you need a little help, and going to the extreme might not necessarily work. So it's a bit of a like gentle, and for me sounds like a compassionate way of dealing with it without hurting someone.
I love that. Both of you are walking, talking therapists. I might have people
That's another
contact me.
podcast.
That's another podcast.
I think we have both done a lot of therapy, right?
Hence it being another podcast.
Thank you so much, both of you. This has been such an enlightening conversation. And I'm sure everything that you shared will really resonate with our listeners. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be here. And I look forward to our future discussions where we'll tackle other juicy topics.